Hello everyone, and welcome to today's SAS Academy for Clinical Programming webinar. I'm Todd Johnson with SAS. You're in for an informative presentation today. Now first, let's meet our host, Anne Bogner-Hamla. Anne?
Yes, thank you, Todd. A very warm welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to launch the SAS Academy for Clinical Programming in Europe, and we see high interest in getting certified as a SAS Clinical Programmer, as we have plenty registrations for this webinar from around 20 different countries. No better person than Bas van Bakel from our partner OCS Life Sciences will talk about the Academy today. Bas is a senior consultant at OCS, expert SAS Clinical Programmer and CDISC specialist with more than 15 years of experience in the field. Through his work for many of OCS clients, Bas has gained substantial industry knowledge. In his role, Bas trains staff of OCS Life Sciences as well as clients in the use of CDISC data standards and SAS programming. So I won't cut into Bas' time any longer. Bas, over to you, please.
Well, thank you, Anne, for the introduction, and welcome everybody to this webinar. It's a real pleasure to speak with you today, and it's also very good to see that there are so many people joining, so many people interested in this SAS Academy for Clinical Programming. Actually, I'm also pretty excited to talk about the content and the format of this SAS Academy, but before I'm going to do that, I would like to give you a little bit of background information and explain the reason why this SAS Academy has been set up in the first place. And I would like to do that with the following rather colorful picture that shows 7 seemingly unrelated images, but there is a link between them, and the link between these pictures and the differences between the pictures both actually are the reason why the SAS Academy has been set up. So let me explain a bit further. SAS was established in 1976, and since then SAS has grown to become one of the world leaders and most commonly used software for analytics. So actually it's being used now by 91 out of the 100 Fortune Globe 500 companies. So that's 91% of these companies actually are using SAS one way or the other. So what you see here on the screen is just a sample of some, let's call it industrial areas, where SAS is being used in. So from left to right, you can see that SAS is used for tracking rhinos across the plain. The second bar shows actually why we are here. It shows that the SAS is being used in the pharmaceutical industry to help develop more safer and more effective medications. SAS is also being used by healthcare providers to come up with more effective ways to help patients, by retailers to manage their stock. It is helping credit card companies to determine if fraud is occurring somewhere. Banking, insurance companies use it to manage their liquidity, and it's even used by sports in forecasting which teams and which players are the ones to follow. So if you look at it from that perspective, if you look all of these industries where SAS is being used for, one nice thing about knowing SAS, either programming in SAS or knowing how to use any of the many tools that SAS has available, is that you can use that skill in many different areas. It can lead you in many different directions. So just like knowing mathematics, just like knowing English or statistics or even Spanish, something like that, it can lead you in many different directions, and it's a skill that's very useful, not for one particular thing. So I'm calling SAS a base skill because it is useful in many areas, but you need to complement it with other skills in order to become proficient in one particular area. So let me give you an example. I started 15 years ago as a statistical programmer at a large pharmaceutical company here in the Netherlands. And if you now give me data of a trial and give me a protocol and a statistical analysis plan, I will know what to do with that data. I will be using SAS for that. That's one skill I use for that, but that's not enough. I will also be using information, experience that I gained over the years with respect to how to program in the pharmaceutical industry. Knowledge of CDISC is used there. So I use other skills in order to complement my SAS skills and become proficient in that area. So if you would give me data about rhinos in Africa, for example, I can use my SAS skills, but I would have no idea what to do with that data. I don't know the statistical models, And yeah, frankly, I don't know anything about rhinos other than that they are big. And if I ever come across one, I need to run away because they appear to be rather dangerous. So what I mean to say with this little anecdote is that with the SAS Academy for clinical programming, what we do is we prepare the participants not only, we do not only tell them what SAS is, we do not only give them the SAS programming skills, but we also provide them with the necessary skills to become proficient in the second bar here within the pharmaceutical industry. So if I go to the slide that shows what this SAS Academy for Clinical Programming is all about, you will see that the SAS Academy has two main tracks. We have a SAS Programming Foundation track and an Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track. So the first track, the SAS Programming Foundation track, is where the participants will learn the basics of the SAS language. They will learn how to program within the SAS environment itself. And then afterwards, once that track has been concluded, the participants can also go to the Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track, and there they will learn all important aspects about working in the pharmaceutical industry. And they will apply the SAS programming skills learned in the SAS Programming Foundation within this track as well, and they will learn how to program within the clinical trial environment. So what I would like to do during this webinar is I would like to show for each of these two tracks what the format of these tracks is, and also what will be discussed during these tracks, what the content of these tracks are. So let's have a look at the SAS Programming Foundation track. This track will be provided via several e-learnings and live web classes, and these e-learnings are self-paced, so you can learn at your own pace. And if you already have some knowledge about programming, you can skip the relevant things that you are already familiar with, or if you find particular things rather interesting, you can more focus on that. So it's really self-paced. The track can be concluded with a certification, which is a SAS base exam, and if you pass that exam, it will make you a SAS certified base programmer. So that's a certification that is recognized globally. And the virtual learning environment is set up also during these SAS Programming Foundation. And within this SAS virtual learning environment, the trainers and participants will have access to test data. There are examples there, tutorials, test exams are there. There's a possibility to work with SAS software. But the environment is also used to ask questions, keep in contact with others, and share information, monitor process, and so on. So it's a rather useful environment for both the participants and the trainers to keep in contact with each other. This is the way that this SAS Programming Foundation is formatted. But let's have a look at what you will learn during this track. And this is just a sample, but these are the most important things that you learn content-wise. Of course, in the SAS Programming Foundation, you will learn how to write SAS programs. And you will learn how to process data and summarize data using SAS procedures and the SAS data step. But what is also really important here is that you just don't only learn how to program and create SAS programs, but you will also think about how to logically program them so that they are reusable and dynamic. So that will be done using the macro language. You will learn that as well during this SAS Programming Foundation. We will also touch the structured query language, SQL, that can be used within SAS. And we will not only talk about processing and handling data, we will also show how you can generate reports output, report listings, and also high quality graphics. So that's what you learn in this track. And as I mentioned before, once you have concluded this track, you can go to SAS and perform an exam that will make you a SAS certified programmer, base programmer actually. And once you have done that, you know how to program in SAS. So that's the SAS skill that I mentioned before that can be used in many different areas. But in order to become proficient in the pharmaceutical industry, it is useful to know things about the pharmaceutical industry itself. And that's why we have set up the second part of this SAS Academy, which is the Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track. And this track is delivered together with OCS Life Sciences, and it will consist of instructor-led classroom trainings, connected classroom trainings that is, and that is mainly in a workshop format. So when in this classroom trainings, you will learn how to apply the information that you have learned during these SAS programming sessions on real life clinical data. So you will perform exercises individually or in groups, and we will go through the outcome of the exercises and discuss what has been done there. This track can also be concluded with a certification, and if you pass that certification, you will become a SAS certified clinical trial programmer. And similarly to the SAS Programming Foundation track, there will also be a virtual learning environment here, so you can also make use of the data and the examples and the community that is set up there. This particular track, this Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track, consists of 4 main areas that we will go through. So we have these 4 areas. The first session will provide the participants with an introduction to the fundamentals of clinical trials. And in the second session, you will learn the important aspects of the CDISC data standards. And these standards actually have become quite a major factor in the pharmaceutical industry over the last years. So the knowledge of these first 2 sessions, the fundamentals and the CDISC standards, together with the SAS programming skills in the SAS Foundation tracks, you will use that, and it will be applied in the 3rd and the 4th sessions here, the programming for clinical trials and the validation essential. And there you will get an in-depth hands-on training in SAS programming within clinical trials. So in summary, the idea of this academy is that you start with the SAS Foundation, which provides you with the necessary SAS programming skills. Then, with the first 2 areas mentioned here, the fundamentals of clinical trials and the CDISC data standards, you will know the context where you will need to program in. And then with the 3rd and the 4th areas shown on the screen here, you will really apply your knowledge of SAS and the context that was learned in the first 2 areas by acting as a clinical programmer in the workshops that are provided there. So I'm going to go through each of these areas one by one and explain briefly what the main topics of each of these areas are, so you get a better overview of the content that will be discussed during these tracks. So first, the fundamentals of clinical trials. There we will discuss, we start with discussing the phases of the drug development, so ranging from phase 1 up to phase 4. We will discuss what the trials look like typically in each of these phases. We will go through the trial design, what an equivalent trial is, what open label trials are, how to randomize, these kind of things will be discussed there. We will go over all the important documents for running clinical trials. So we will talk about the protocol, case report forms, a statistical analysis plan. All these things will be discussed. We will go through the data flow of the data, from data collection, through data submission, through data analysis. All these steps we will go over, and also we will describe which departments there typically are and what these departments typically do with these data at these stages. And of course, we cannot skip the Declaration of Helsinki. That's the most important. It's actually the cornerstone document of ethics within clinical trials. So we're also going through that at this stage. After we talked about the fundamentals of clinical trials, we will also dig into the CDISC data standards. And for those that are not familiar with CDISC, CDISC is a consortium, and that is a non-profit organization actually, that has provided several data standards. And actually the agencies like FDA request more and more pharmaceutical companies to submit their data in that standard. So one way or another, if you are a clinical programmer, you will be needing to know these models, because you either get data delivered in these models or you need to ensure that your data fits in these models. So that's why this is an important aspect of this academy as well. So in this area, we will go over several of the models that have been provided by CDISC. We will touch the CDAS, the data acquisition model. We will thoroughly go through the STTM and the ADAM models. These are, in my opinion, the most important ones. We will also discuss the data reviewer's guide for both STTM and ADAM. We will talk about the Define XML and the analysis results data set. So we get a clear picture of what the CDISC standards are. So later on, if you are a clinical programmer, you know what it is that you will be getting, or you know what you need to convert to. Then, in my opinion, the most important aspect of this applied clinical data management and analysis part is this programming for clinical trials section. In this section, you will be really acting as a clinical trial programmer in the workshops that are provided. So we will start with providing the participants with an overview of all different kinds of programming environments that are typically used by clinical programmers. We will talk about PC SAS, we talk about Enterprise Guide, we talk about the Life Science Analytics Framework, LSAF, previously known as SAS Drug Development, and we will also talk about SAS Studio. And the last one, SAS Studio, will also be used in the hands-on training. So you will be programming in SAS Studio, and we will go through the most common examples that you will definitely need to do if you are a clinical programming. So we talk about edit checks, consistency checks. We talk about how to map data, how to convert data, how to annotate your CRF. We talk about the most common SCTM and ADAM derivations, like baseline flags, missing data imputation, units conversion, etc. We also talk about how you can produce output in a logical way. So we talk about the tables listing figures that you typically need to generate within the pharmaceutical industry. And we will also talk about the submission deliverables like Define XML and transport files. Then after this session, there's a session about validation essentials. And this is actually quite an important area as well that is sometimes forgotten. It's really important for a clinical trial programmer to confirm the correctness of everything that has been generated, to validate the data. And if you work as a clinical programmer, you often need to validate the work of others as well. So in this track, we will also talk about what are logical ways to validate your data, what is typically done in the life cycle of a program. How do you develop it? How do you validate it? And how can you put it in production? We also talk about different ways of confirming your data is correct, different ways of validation like peer review, double programming. We will talk about good clinical practice, and we will also touch Title 21 CFR Part 11. So at this stage, after we have gone through all of these 4 areas, in principle, you know all the important aspects, all the important things that you need to know about programming within the pharmaceutical industry. And if you concluded the SAS Programming Foundation and the Applied Clinical Data Management, you are ready actually to take the exam and become a SAS Certified Clinical Programmer. And then you can really act as a clinical programmer you have all the information you need to know to become a clinical programmer. That's the idea of this SAS Academy. So at this stage, this is all I wanted to say about the content and the format of this SAS Academy. But at this stage, I would like to give back the word to Anne, who will show you the website, where the information that I just talked about is also available. And she will also be touching some things that I did not touch yet during this presentation.
Yes, thank you, Bas. Very detailed and good information. So now I'm going to share my screen. And yes, I hope you can see my screen. I would like to point you to the website for the Academy, and we can just go through it. So what you see here is the website for the SAS Academy for Clinical Programming. You will find nearly the same information and symbols that you have just seen in Bas' presentation. You can find here the SAS Programming Foundation track, the Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track, and the whole topic around getting SAS Certified Clinical Programmer. When we scroll down, you can see this listing where you can compare the tracks and the detailed information about what is contained in each track. So you have here the SAS Programming Foundation with the different SAS courses, and the Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track with the different topics that are covered in workshop formats. Let's see the details for the Programming Foundation track. So you see here that you have the different course topics that already were mentioned on Buz's slides, writing SAS programs and so on. You can see here the format. And as Bas has mentioned, it's mostly self-paced e-learning, so you can learn at your own pace and go into details where you don't have the knowledge and skip those classes or those e-learnings where you are already familiar with. And we have one live web class for the report writing section. And when we scroll down, you can see here the price for this track. So for each module, you get a wealth of course material, access to software, exercises, the virtual learning environment. So it's a quite reasonable price for a lot of content. That's 4,000 euro. You can see here the price in different other currencies. And when you like to register, you see this big button. Just click it and you will be able to register for this track. When we move to the next track, the Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis, you will find the same sections. You have the course topics as described by Bas. You can see the explanation of the connected classroom. Connected classroom means that we have an instructor-led training in a classroom setting, for example, in Heidelberg in Germany. So we can join this class, or you can attend the classroom remotely. You are just connected to the people, to the trainer within the class, and you can listen to the same words that they have in the classroom setting. You will practice as the ones in the classroom. So you really are part of this classroom, but you are sitting remotely. And when we scroll down here, you can see as well the pricing. So we have the first two parts of this track for 3,500 euro, and the third and fourth part also for 3,500 euro. And also here you can find the price in different currencies. And when we now go to the SAS Clinical Programmer on the website, you can see everything together. And when we scroll down on this page, you can see the total pricing. So you have the 4,000 for the Programming Foundation. You have 7,000 for the Applied Clinical Data Management and Analysis track. And you can see that when you take the full package, you will get a discount. So normally you would have to pay 11,000 euro, but you will get it for 9,990 euro. And once again, you will find here the register button. So just a short impression on how the website looks like and how to navigate it. And before we now end the presentation, I'll show you briefly what the next career steps could look like with our SAS Academy for Data Science. So what we've explained so far are those two boxes: the SAS Certified Base Programmer, which corresponds to track 1 of the Clinical Academy, the Certified Clinical Trials Programmer, which is the second track of our Academy. And now you can see here the SAS Certified Expert for Big Data and the SAS Certified Expert for Advanced Analytics. Both tracks are available in self-paced e-learning format. in the SAS Academy for Data Science. The track SAS Certified Expert for Artificial Intelligence will become available soon, so just stay tuned. So from my side, thank you for listening. But do we have some questions coming in?
Hi, Anne. Yes, thanks. That's a terrific presentation. We have already received some great questions from the audience. As a reminder, we'd ask the audience to please use the Q&A function in your WebEx windows to submit your questions. So again, we've already received some great questions. Let's get right to it. Bas, this first one is for you. What is the impact of participating in the Academy on job opportunities, and what sort of job roles should attend this Academy?
Yes, good question. Let me start with the last part, what job roles should attend. Yeah, it's difficult to exclude or include particular roles. In principle, the Academy is set up to let you become a clinical trial programmer. So if you want to become one, you can attend this training. But I can imagine that if you have already some experience in SAS programming, for example, that you may only be interested in the clinical data part, the second track, and vice versa. Maybe if you are already working in the pharmaceutical environment, maybe you're only interested in the SAS programming. So it kind of depends on your current role. In principle, there are no strict prerequisites. So you don't need to know any SAS coding in order to start with SAS programming. It does help if you know how to if you have experience in using SAS software, of course, softwares in general, but it's not really necessary. And similarly, it's not important to know anything about the pharmaceutical industry, but it might help if you have a background in life science. So, yeah, in principle, there are no strict rules. Anybody can in principle join this SAS Academy and become a clinical programmer. And the first part of the question was, I believe, with respect to job opportunities. I think that if you get your certificate, your SAS-based certificate or your SAS clinical programming certificate, that will definitely help you with your job opportunities. You can add it to your resume. It's globally recognized, that certification. So yeah, from that perspective, it will help, I think.
Fantastic. And Bas, for you as well, is there an opportunity to practice during the clinical programming track? And do you have any examples you could share?
There will be a lot of opportunity to practice, actually. It does. There's a difference between the areas. So I talked about fundamentals of clinical trials. In that part, when we talk about that, well, that's mainly describing what the pharmaceutical industry looks like and what the clinical trial looks like, what the important aspects are. So there is much interaction, but not a lot of practice. But when we go into the programming, for example, you will practice a lot. You will really be programming, and you will see what typical issues you will face as a clinical programmer. So there will be a lot of workshop and a lot of practice.
Fantastic. And this question is for you. This person says that they already have programming experience. In fact, they're SAS-based certified. So what about the certification for clinical programming?
Yes, good question as well. When you already have the SAS certified base programmer exam passed, you just can go to track 2. So you don't need to take track 1 again. You are allowed to, so you can just buy it and have the e-learnings just to review your skills or to repeat, but you could just forward with the track 2.
Great. We've had someone ask approximately how much time is needed to complete the 2 tracks?
Okay. As the first track can be done in self-paced format, it's up to you how much time you will spend. I think that the courses that are in this e-learnings are about 12 days of learnings. So you just can decide on your own if you would like to reserve some time at once and go through all those e-learnings at one time, or you can just split it up and go through it every week a little bit. So it's just up to you. And for track 2, we just can go back to the website for a moment. We have planned for different workshops on planned dates. So we have 2 days for the fundamentals of clinical trials. We have 4 days for the CDISC data standards. We have 4 days for the SAS programming for clinical trials where you practice. And we have 2 days for the validation essentials.
Okay. So Anne, can you tell us a bit more about the investment in this program?
Yes. As we've already seen on the web page, you can, if you remember, you will have for the track 1, you will need to invest 4,000 euros. And for track 2 in total, it would be 7,000 euros. And if you purchase the whole package, the full package, it's just about 9,990 euros.
And can you tell us what a connected class is?
Yes, for sure. We will have in track 2 the workshops as connected classroom. This will mean that we have a class running, for example, in Heidelberg, where I'm located in Germany. So you may register for this class in Heidelberg and come and visit this nice city. Or you just can connect remotely. You will be given a link where you can connect to those people in the classroom. You will have a direct line to the trainer. You will see the trainer and the participants in the room per video. You can chat. You have a direct line to the trainer and to the class, so you can ask questions in live. You will have your own practice environment where you can practice the exercises. So it's really as if you were in Heidelberg, but you may sit in London or in Copenhagen or wherever you are located.
Fantastic. We've got a couple of other questions that have come in from the audience. One person asked if you might have any thoughts on what the career or job options are in health services, for example, like the NHS.
I think it's quite similar to the pharmaceutical environment, I think. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between health services like NHS and the pharmaceutical environment. So yeah, it's hard for me to answer.
Okay. Great. And then another question, this person is curious if the SAS-based programming course is going to be changing. They're planning to take the certification exam soon.
Yes, it will change slightly. Today or during this year, we will have a 4-day class, which is relevant for the programming 1, for example. And next year, we will have a 2-day class for the programming 1. So it is shortened a little bit. But if you take the SAS-based programming exam this year, it will remain valid for this SAS Academy for Clinical Programming and for every other topics that you may proceed with. So it's absolutely okay to take the exam this year. and it will be a valid prerequisite for track 2 of this Academy for Clinical Programming.
Okay. Another person is asking, could you explain more about the CDISC courses? Would you say they're more theoretical, or are they hands-on with real-life examples?
The CDISC courses, they start with a short theoretical section, because we do need to explain, of course, what all the models are. But we will quickly go into real-life examples where you will need to think about how, for example, in the SCTM part, how you would map your source data and fit it into the SCTM model. So we will discuss the pitfalls that you generally come across when you do that. We will discuss common practices there. So there will be, it is relatively a high percentage hands-on real-life examples.
Well, very good. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. We do appreciate our audience submitting so many good questions. If we didn't get the time to answer your question, or if you have follow-up, please submit those in the Q&A or chat windows, and we'll be sure to forward them on to our presenters. I do want to remind you that if you are a SAS professional, you'll want to make sure to attend SAS Global Forum 2019. This is happening April 28th through May 1st, 2019. At the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. You can take advantage of more than 600 diverse sessions for all skill levels, plus get in some valuable networking. Don't miss the keynotes, workshops, presentations, demos, and so much more. You can now take advantage of early bird discount registration, which runs through March 4th. To get all of the information and to register, please go to sasglobalforum.com. I also want to invite you to connect with SAS on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can join and participate in the ever-growing SAS communities, which now numbers nearly 200,000 members. Anne and Bas, thank you both for a great presentation today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today. We know that your time is valuable, and we certainly hope that you found today's presentation both engaging and informative. For SAS, I'm Todd Johnson. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye for now.